Right to be Read podcast, episode number 24. Interview with Jimmy Burgess.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. Before we start the show, I would like to remind you that the special free resources for writers that I've created are still available on my website, and you can grab them at www.anialexander.com/free. Okay, now let's get back to the show. Today I'm going to speak with Jimmy Burgess. He's someone who loves his job. He helps frustrated self-published authors become Amazon best-selling authors and build a platform that turns their book into a business. Hello, Jimmy. I'm really happy to have you here.
Ani, I'm excited to be with you. I love what you're doing with your podcast. This is so needed. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be with you.
Thank you. Such a busy century that everyone is so busy. So, dedicating this 1 hour to an interview is quite a while. and I really appreciate that. So, Jimmy, let's start from the very beginning. I assume that most of the people who write books have not done it all the time. They've been doing something else before that. So, who was Jimmy before he became author?
What's interesting, Ani, is that I kind of came into this, and my book is my main book is kind of my story of going from struggling financially and in life to having this boom financially, where we saw this a lot of money come in, and then actually losing all of it and bouncing back from that. So that's kind of where my book came about is when I got through everything and I realized that I was better, not just financially, but I was better relationally, I was better spiritually, I was better in my marriage. Everything that was around me was better, that I just didn't want what I went through and I suffered through for 4 or 5 years to be in vain. And so as I began to talk to people and share it with them, they said, you really need to write this down. And I'm not the typical person you would expect to be an author. And so it was kind of interesting. I'd always enjoyed writing, but it wasn't something that I just really ever thought about. When I kept getting encouraged to do that, I really got a passion to share my story. And so that's what I did. That's how the book came about, was just kind of sharing the story of the struggles I went through and how I came through them, because once I got through them, I realized there were some patterns there. And that was the initial reason that I wanted to write the book. And I think like a lot of self-published authors especially, I ended up self-publishing because I just was turned off by all of the bureaucracy and everything that went on with traditional publishing. I mean, there's advantages to it, obviously. I'm not saying that that's not a route that I'll go at a later date. But for me, I just wanted to get my message out. And when I did that, I think we've all had those frustrations, especially if you aren't really sure what to do. I started and I put my book out there just the way I thought I knew how, and just didn't get any results to speak of. I mean, we sold some books, but it wasn't like what I was hoping for. And so I ended up having to figure out what is it that those people out there that are building businesses around their books, what is it the people that are like yourself that are having success in self-publishing, what is it that you're doing? And once I became a student of that, some things began to become clear, and now I'm enjoying getting to do these things like speaking with you and a number of other people and kind of share my story of what I've done.
Okay. Well, since I haven't yet read your book, do I understand correctly that the message you're spreading and the struggles you had were about the transition from 9-to-5 corporate world towards a free lifestyle? Or am I wrong?
No, that's exactly right. It was that transition, and it was the growing pains of that. It's that understanding that I believe that every one of us has something inside us that we were just kind of almost created to be and do. I mean, obviously, I think, with your story where you came from a corporate background, but you knew there was something that you wanted to chase your passion, and nobody ever really had to teach you how to do some of the things you're doing. And so I think that the book is mainly giving people the understanding that they can live the life that they dream of, and that the dream that they've had, it may lay dormant for a long time, but that it doesn't ever die. and just encouraging people to chase those dreams and encouraging them to understand that they can do whatever it is that they dream to do.
Yeah, because I mean, at some stage you end up having so many doubts and so many fears, and you think it's it is actually quite risky, because you have obligations, you have family, you have kids, etc., etc. So it's not very easy, and I'm sure that there is a need for support and encouragement from other people who, especially those who have done it and who have gone through that path themselves and know what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you wrote the book. The idea of writing the book came from other people saying that, oh, it's a great story and you should write it?
Yeah, it did. Well, originally what happened is we went through the huge downturn economically in the U.S. Around 2008, 2009. There were so many people like myself that had done so well that just basically lost everything financially and had to start over. And I was able to bounce back financially pretty quick. And so some of the friends that I had around me were wondering what happened, and how did I bounce back? And they would ask me, can you help me? And so I began helping them formulate plans to bounce back, and we started seeing results. And then I kind of got interested in it because I was like, well, there's some patterns here. And so I began to write those things down and got asked to speak a few times about my story. And then I got being encouraged that you need to write this down, that's the way that you can help the most people and get that message out there. And so that it really did start with other people encouraging me to do this. And then I originally didn't know if that's what I wanted to do, because it's hard to put all of your to be transparent enough to where it is effective. It's hard to say everything that you went through, let everybody see your warts and all, I guess you'd say. And so that was a tough part. But once I began to do that, what I found, and I think most writers find, is that once you kind of let yourself go and you just tell it all, or you tell a story in a way that it's going to affect other people, it's so freeing. And in reality, what's happened for me is when I kind of started out as someone that would be kind of, I wasn't sure if I wanted to write. Now it's one of those things where I almost have to. It's a part of who I am, and it gives me something that I had been missing in my life to be able to share, whether that be on my blog or whether it be in writing I'm doing for other publications, whether it's the books. It frees something inside me that's just been pent up and wanting to get out.
I see. So let's follow your journey. You were encouraged. You wrote that first book, and you self-published it, right?
Right.
Okay. What happens then? I mean, I assume you were super excited when you pushed that publish button, and most probably you were expecting to have great sales and becoming famous, etc. I mean, we all have at some stage this illusion that everything, happens just overnight and things will roll. We just have to write that book and the rest will come itself. What happens then?
I had that very feeling. You nailed it. I mean, I think we all do, don't we? I mean, you hit publish and you're like, okay, here we go. And then you keep refreshing to see how many books you sold. And wow, there's one. Wow, that really didn't make a difference, And so
usually, usually that person.
I know, and they've told you they were going to. Here's the worst part is when you have 10 people tell you, I'm going to buy the book right now, and you see there's only 2 sales, and you're like, what is going on, Yeah. But, it's one of those situations where I just had that frustration. I think that all authors at some point have that. I just thought it was going to do more. I thought I was going to be able to have more of an effect. I thought that I would just put my message out there, and just by it being quality, that it was going to sell itself. And the age we live in, that can happen, but it is so rare that you have to understand that in order to get results, you've got to have a pattern, you've got to have a plan, and then you've got to have the ability to hustle, to work hard to make it happen. And that's what happened to me. I got so frustrated. I said, there's got to be a better way. And I went out and I found the people that were doing it. And in some cases, I hired them to teach me. In some cases, I just asked them what I could do to help them in exchange for them teaching me some things. And so I began to see some momentum build. And here we are We've hit Amazon #1 bestseller in multiple categories, and it's really helped me create a business around my book that's exciting because of the change I'm able to see with other people. But it's exciting to see now that I've gained that skill that the next book that I publish, I've got a plan of action already in place, and I know from the jump what I'm going to do to make sure that that thing has more success out of the gate than my original one did.
Okay, I see. So in the very beginning, when the first book wasn't selling, which were the biggest mistakes you made? What do you think was the reason that it didn't do very well in the beginning?
Not having a plan of action, just putting it out there and reacting to what happened instead of trying to be out there in a way that I was promoting the book so that it could draw an audience that would then share it. I just kind of went into it doing what I thought would work, and I realized that there's a whole big world out there. This is a perfect example. Here we are, me in the United States speaking with you in Romania, and it's amazing the opportunity we have today to get our message out. And if you're not proactive about doing it, I wasn't from the beginning. I just tried to share it with the people I knew, and it just you've got to get out there and get your message out in a big way. And there's ways to do that. I just didn't know how to do them to begin with. I had not gotten the help that I needed originally.
Okay, and I presume that you didn't have an audience in place beforehand, right? I mean, you didn't have a blog, you didn't have readership. You email list maybe. You had an email list or not?
I had zero. And okay. Here's the thing. I say zero. I had some following on on Twitter and Facebook, but it was not targeted. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing mistake that I made is that I just assumed that it was going to spread virally through friends and family and people that I had worked with. What I found now is like you say, you've got to build that audience. Part of the problem was, and that's why I'm enjoying the work that I'm doing now, is that I read all the books from the big guys that had lists and the people that had already some notoriety. And of course, when they publish a book, the things they did, it wouldn't work for me or the average author out there that's self-publishing a book and doesn't have a following. And so for me, what I had to do is I had to go find the people that had built from ground zero, started to build a list, started to build a business, began to get their message out in a way that they could get it out when they were starting from a very small following. And that's what I did. And that was the big difference is when I started, I didn't purposely build that audience beforehand or even after I had launched. It took me a while to realize how important that is to help other people and to build an audience.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a very important word, which is targeted audience, because I had a list also, but it was a different list, and it didn't work because it wasn't created specifically for fiction readers. I mean, it was a completely different audience with a different magnet, so they were getting a free ebook, but it wasn't a fiction book, so it was, and that's why it didn't work well. So besides the audience, you have to get the right audience in place, I guess. So in that case, how did you start building your audience? What did you do?
Well, of course, obviously, I began a blog, and that really helped for two things. It helped with my writing. It helped to find the people that I was looking for, and I got really heavily involved on social media, and that's been a big part of that's how we met. Was through Twitter, and so that's a big part of what I did was reaching out to people that through social media. And the great thing about Twitter to me, and I love Facebook, but the great thing about Twitter to me is that it gives me the ability to connect very targeted to an audience. It gives me the ability to find a group of people that that I can get good things from, and that they can get good things from me because we share similar interests. With Facebook, for me, some of it I get some following there, and I've got a pretty solid following there. But a lot of it is people that I've known that I know personally, but we don't have any business It doesn't make as much sense business wise, and I don't want to share I don't want to overwhelm that group of people that aren't really interested, because I don't want to turn them off, because it's not what I'm trying to do. But when I can put something on Twitter that's targeted, when I have the followers that are authors or that are people that write, and I can write a blog post about writing that gives them some tips and some tools that they can use, I'm adding value to that group. I put that same thing with friends, for instance, on Facebook, and they're like, what in the world is he talking about? You know what I mean? So yeah. I really think that's important, is to build that audience.
It's like, it reminded me, if you are talking to people who have never written a book, you can't really explain many things, because they just, they are from a completely different world, and they don't really understand what it really means. And okay, you've got a 5-star review, well, okay, so what? It's different. They are having different lives, and they have completely different interests, and it's very difficult to get a common platform to talk about things. So that's why, for example, I have 2 different Facebook profiles. One is the one I had many years ago, like my personal one for friends, family, etc. And when I became a writer and started getting requests from people I didn't know personally, and I didn't specifically want them to know too much about my personal life and my photos and photos of my son, etc., I opened a new one where I accepted absolutely everyone. And there already, the audience was different, the followers and friends were different. So there it was, as you said, better to put those things about writing, books and podcasts and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Let me mention one other thing, Ani, that really helped me start growing everything, because I think it's perfect with what you're doing, is that I just went out and got proactive on finding podcasts that my message that people were looking for on those podcasts, for people that had written books or experts or people that had something that they could add to their audience. And I just proactively began to go out and get those interviews. I've got a free video it's on my blog now on how to get interviews on podcasts, where I kind of show even the email that I sent out to people. But let me tell you a great place to start with that. There is, if you go on, there's a website called radioguestlist.com. And it's radioguestlist.com. And what that does is they have a free place where you can sign up to receive emails from radio shows and podcasts that are looking for specific people to interview. I started there because a lot of those are newer podcasts sometimes, and they're looking for people, and that's a great place to start, where you can find some of the podcasts that are looking for you. I mean, the authors out there, you have to understand, whether you're writing nonfiction, fiction, certain styles, certain things that you have, there's an audience out there that really wants to hear from you. And if you can get targeted, and on that video on the blog, I show people how to target your specific niche and the shows that fit for that. Once you do that, it gives you the capability to get your word and get your message out in a way that you could share about that's going to draw interest to you and draw people towards you. And it's going to draw the people towards you that is your audience, that need to hear your voice. So I would just encourage people to kind of go see that and get out there and spread your message. And podcasts right now, so exciting to be able to get on somewhere and do an interview and build an audience that way.
Yeah, great. I haven't heard about that. So I'll include the link in the show notes, and also the link to your free video, which explains how to use that.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, so you used social media, you used podcast interviews to spread your message and get an audience. What else did you use?
I did guest blog posting, which really made a big difference for me. I began to build some relationships with some other people that had similar interest. And what happens is, what's great about the business that we're in is that, I come from a real estate background, and it was almost like if I got a real estate deal, then the other competitors didn't get it, so they suffered. What's great about this is that when you get on and you begin to do guest posts, somebody that buys my book is probably going to buy more than one book in that area. You know what I mean? In other words, if you've written a book, a fictional book about whatever, odds are it's not the only book that people are going to read. So the other authors that are in that same genre, if you can share with each other and you cross-pollinate your audiences, it helps both of you. So what I would do is I would go and I found the blogs that fit with what I was doing and the people that I genuinely like what they were doing. And I would just send them an email and I'd say, hey, I love what you're doing with this. I've written something that I think might fit for your audience where we could cross-pollinate, where I would promote it on my side so that my audience would find you and maybe your audience would find me, and we'd add value to your people. Just let me know what you think. And they would email back, and some will, some won't. But here's what was great is the ones that I did, I built relationships with those people, and we've been able to help each other grow our businesses. And by doing that guest blog post, which is great, is that it has a link at the bottom. This is a guest blog post by, for instance, me, Jimmy Burgess, and it links back to my website. Mm-hmm. So it helps so many different ways, and it doesn't just help me, it helps that other person grow their audience from my existing audience as well.
Yeah, I see. Well, but were you doing this full time? I mean, guest blogging takes quite a lot of time in terms of research, writing the post, because I assume you were also writing for your blog as well at the same time, right?
Right. But here's the thing. I mean, if it's something that you're writing about, that you're passionate about, when I first started, it was tough because I was trying to write what I thought that audience or that person wanted to hear. You know what I mean? So here's what I did is basically where I am right now is I'm doing – I think it's all about organization. I try to write at least one – blog post for my website a week, and I get ahead. I did a bunch of where I could stay ahead of this. I do one blog post that I want to send out as a guest post per week. Now, here's the thing: is the stuff that I'm writing for me personally, because it's guest blog posting for mostly nonfiction or mostly for writers. It's something that I'm learning about on a daily basis. When I listen to your podcast. With Johnny B, for instance, just a few weeks ago, I learned something that I was able to then apply and help other people by learning that. So it's something that it takes me roughly about 3 hours a week to write one for mine and one for someone else's. Now that I have it organized, and so yes, it does take some time. And then if that person doesn't like that one article that I sent out, or they don't like it doesn't fit for them, then what I'll do is then I'll send that same article. I'll just make a few minor adjustments to the next person that it fits for their blog. Mm-hmm. And what's happened now also is once you begin to do that, then I'm beginning to write for some other larger almost magazine type websites, and that is a huge opportunity there, because once you get in with a magazine style website, typically once you write a couple of articles, they want more from you, and so it begins to where you can almost do it every 2 weeks in one place. That really drives a lot of traffic to you. So those are some ways to get started. Everything's work on the front side. It's always the hardest. You and I were talking about this before we got on, about when you first started the podcast, it was a lot harder because you were trying to figure out how to do it. Yeah. Once you put that hard work in and you figure out what works, then it gets easier as you do more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, okay, we spoke about what you did from your side. Also, you have self-published your book, which means that I assume it's on Amazon only or on different platforms as well?
It's on Amazon only. And part of the reason, and I think there's pros and cons to all of that. With the size of me when I started, I think for a first book and for someone that's building their audience originally, obviously Amazon's the biggest player. For me, it was I needed to learn one platform. Now that I've learned that platform, and now with the next book, I'm probably going to do things a little differently. So I just think it's all about, where are you in your business? Where are you? If this is your first book, or this is your first time publishing anything, you may just want to concentrate in one area and focus on that area. As you grow, I've got friends of mine that they're on all of the platforms, and it makes a lot of sense for them because they've got an audience that's larger that is going to look for them in different places. So I think it just depends on where you are in your business, and a lot of it's how much time do you have to learn those things, and a lot of it is where are you as far as where you want to go in the long run, and where are you along that line to make sure it fits for you best.
Okay, then let's discuss maybe you can share some tips and tricks you use for Amazon. The KDB select things, or how are you really working in terms of marketing on Amazon?
And here's what I love about Amazon is that it's built on momentum, and once you kind of know the game, you can kind of begin to form a plan on how to play it. For me, I realized that when I just put my book out there, I had no promotion. I didn't do any type of a launch. I actually coordinated a relaunch of the book. And what I did is I utilized a number of things. It took me about 2 to 3 months to prepare for it. Now, there's ways to shorten that, but that was what I wanted to do, where I did a lot of podcast interviews, and they were then scheduled for the week of the launch. I did a bunch of guest blog posts so that we had this influx of things. We offered a bunch of bonuses on that 1 week of the launch, which really helped draw a crowd. Some of the people that I've worked with will actually reduce the price of their book for a short period of time. And what this all does is it gives you some buzz. And here's what happens with Amazon. When you begin to show that you can sell, Amazon's in the business of selling books, bottom line. So what Amazon wants to do is if they find someone that is promoting on their own, that has got some activity going, what they'll do then is they'll say, okay, here we go. We've got somebody that's got some reviews coming in. They've got some book sales. They got some momentum. Let's help them out. And they'll come in and be the tailwind that'll continue to help push you going forward. They actually – here's the big difference. New York Times bestsellers, Wall Street Journal bestsellers, USA Today bestsellers in the U.S., those are calculated on sales based on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis. What Amazon does is they have so many subcategories, and they actually come in and they do it almost on an hourly basis. They reset their bestseller list. So if you're targeting a certain category and you're moving a lot of sales at one certain time, there are ways that you can get into a position where you can drive your book to bestseller, which creates momentum, which then helps you get that Amazon behind a book, and it helps keep pushing that book forward.
Are you talking about paid bestsellers list or the free bestseller list?
I've only worked with the paid. I had a friend of mine that launched a book on the free bestseller list last week, and it just did phenomenal as far as the number of sales. For me, I used the paid because it just depends. Again, if you're a fictional author that has a series of books, it makes a lot of sense to do a free book that leads into it. That makes sense. For me, from a standpoint of I just have one book, I have one message right now that I'm really concentrating. I have some smaller other how-to books that I've done, but my main focus right now is on that main book and my message. I've really got to a place where I wanted to do it where it was a paid version. I wanted people that really were serious about it because there was value there. Mm-hmm. And so there's a different mentality with all of it. I'm not going to say what I did is perfect for everybody because it's not. Mm-hmm. What I will say is if you look at the two things and figure out what is your long-term goal, then obviously you can get there. Here's what's happened since I hit Amazon #1 bestseller. It's opened up, and I'm looking at it from a business perspective, not just from a book sales perspective. When I first started, I really wanted to have the royalties and the sales of the book. And what I found is that in reality, what the book for me personally is it was kind of the tip of the spear for my business. The book gave me credibility. It gave me a market that I could work with, which helped me build my list, which has now created additional sales and revenues from the sale of the book, but it's given me the ability to have a business I can build from. When you get that bestseller status, for me personally, I've gotten an opportunity to speak in places that I didn't get to speak before. I've gotten an opportunity to coach some clients that I wouldn't have necessarily probably been coaching before. I've had a chance now to be interviewed on podcasts and radio shows that I wouldn't have been able to be interviewed on before because of that status. And so what I try to focus on is, what is the goal of the individual author? If your goal is to build a business, that status is pretty critical for you to get.
I see. So since you worked with the paid rankings, do you have any approximate estimation about how much sales, how many books do you have to sell in order to get to number one best-selling ranking?
This is perfect. Great question. Great question, because this is what's so fun. There's a great website called kdpcalculator.com. Okay, it's kdpcalculator.com. Here's what you can do, and obviously these rankings are adjusting, on an hourly basis. Your sales and where you are ranking wise. Go to the category, the subcategory you're in, that your book is in. Go down and find that subcategory and find out what the number one bestseller is in that category. When you click on that book, and again, there's on my opt-in I showed this where I actually go in and show people what I did and how I found the categories and how I positioned it. But when you go in there on KDP Calculator, you've got it on one, and then you've got the number one bestseller book in your category on the other side. When you scroll down, it will tell you the rank of that book in all of Kindle purchases. Okay, I'm going to use Kindle for this example. Okay, so you see the number, and it would say however many, 1,000 rank, 43 rank, whatever it is that it ranks in all of books in Kindle. Highlight that number, go plug it in to the calculator on KDP Calculator. It's going to tell you an average of how many books that number one bestseller is selling on a daily basis. Now, obviously the subcategories are set up, and actually when you look at the subcategories, it's going to show you how many books are in that category. That's what's in the parentheses there on the side. When you get there and you find your subcategory that fits best for your book, and it is a subcategory that fits best for your book and has the least amount of other books in that category, it gives you a better chance of reaching that. Now, there's some other things that go into it, but the key is get in the right category, know how many books on average that number one bestseller is so that you can formulate a plan. Once you have that, formulate your plan to do a launch in a way that you'll be able to reach that.
Okay, I see. So you can get in advance your target sales number, which will lead you to becoming number one bestseller.
It does, because now that you know the number, you know what you've got to generate. And once you have a target, you can formulate a plan on how to get to a target. I didn't have any idea beforehand, on how to get there, but I didn't even know where I was going. You know what I mean? That's the tough part. Is once you realize, hey, okay, I need to sell whatever it is. I mean, there's some subcategories where if you sell 100 books in a day, you can be a number one bestseller. So it just depends on the category you go into and that fits best for your book. And then there's some that you've got to sell 400, 500 books to be a number one bestseller. So it just depends on where your book fits and the plan that you get together. But once you have an idea, okay, I need to sell 100 books. What do I need to do to sell 100 books? And that's where you can formulate that plan.
And since you already know how things work, more or less, I was very surprised, to be honest. Let's go there at this point, since I recalled this question. I noticed on your website, you are working with clients and you're promising them that you will make their book a bestseller. Right. And you're even giving them a money-back guarantee if the book doesn't become a bestseller.
Right.
So does it mean that there is a standard formula that you know and you use for all your clients? Or you are, you know things so well that you can make any book a bestseller?
No, I mean, obviously, there's two ways to look at it. It's not a standard formula for every book, because every book is different and every author is different. What it is it's an outline that you can plug in and see what fits best for that individual to maximize the sales for that individual over a short period of time that drives it and gives it that momentum to reach that bestseller status. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun, because now that we're doing this is you've really, for my clients at least, you've got to figure out what it means for you. I mean, if it's somebody that doesn't want to build a business, they just want to write and they just want to sell books, this will help you sell books. But if you're looking for something to build a business and you want that status, that's who I'm ideally fit. That's who I ideally fit for. And in reality, just to even go down deeper, I'm better with someone that is a nonfiction. What I do is a nonfiction writer than a fiction writer. I mean, I don't want to, I can help. I have helped people that have written fiction, but I'm really, really focused on helping those with nonfiction that are wanting to build a business. So yeah, it's great because if you've got a quality product, the key is find your audience and formulate a plan on how to reach that audience in a way that gives you impact and gets you the sales you need to reach that status. And that's what we do.
Well, what you told me led me to my next question. You mentioned quality product. So do you choose your clients? Because, there may be many people who are willing to pay the price. But, when you look into it, you see that basically, well, let's say mildly, the book is not good enough.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a process. And typically what I do with people is I'll do a half-hour free consultation interview with them to kind of see if we mesh. You know what I mean? Do we have the same integrity? Do we I had one last week that when I talked with this lady, after I was like, this is not, I don't agree with what you're saying here and, the way you're doing this. And I didn't say it that way. I just said, I helped her. I said, here's some free tools on what you can use, but I just don't think it's best for each of us. And here's some places that I think you can find something to really help. So yes, you have to be, at least for me in my business, I just want to make sure that, that people have the same integrity I do and that I'm able to build relationships that aren't just about getting their book to number one or helping them do whatever it is that they want to do, but it's about actually adding value. Because what I found is the more value I add out in the market, the more it comes back. And so it's very critical to work with people that, for me at least, that are in alignment with what I believe in and that do a quality product that's going to really have the ability to help people out in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you mentioned also that people left their emails and you created a big email list based on your books. So do you have any idea about the conversion rate, like the opt-in form? You have it integrated in the book, right?
Yes. Yeah. It varies. It varies because I'm constantly testing those things. I'll give you a great thing for people that if they've got a WordPress site that's really been helping me. It's really improved my opt-in. And if they go to my website, they'll see this. But AppSumo is a free plugin for WordPress. And what it does, and this has really helped me recently, is that it actually has a pop-up that comes up. I used to be so against pop-ups, but what we found in testing that is it doesn't bother people. And so before they leave the website, it'll pop up and say, would you like free exclusive information and video training on how I drove my book to number one with a list of less than 80 people? Those kind of things where it just gets to the point. And that actual pop-up has really helped. And then it also has, AppSumo has, on the right-hand side, and I don't have any affiliation with AppSumo, but it's just really helped me. On the right-hand side, it has a thing that scrolls down. It's called a scroll down. And so it has your pop-up that just stays to the right where it's not in front of things. And every time they scroll down, it kind of follows them. That's really helped as well. And a lot of times, the whole key is just add value to people in a way that just be cool about it. I mean, don't just badger people. Just, with mine, when they join my email list, I try to give them so much value that they're like, wow, this is a good guy. This is a guy that is really wants to help people. And when you're genuine in that, it comes through. And so there's some little things like the AppSumo app that's really helped to help my conversion on people that were coming to the website. And then once you get them converted, the key, just make sure you take full advantage of giving them as much value as you can so that they become those raving fans.
I see. And speaking about fans, book reviews are quite important for the Amazon rankings, also for the decision making of, buying the book or not, because many, do read reviews or at least see how many they are and, what's the average star rating of the book. So how did you deal with getting reviews?
I failed miserably in the beginning. You know what I mean? And so I knew the value of it. And as I studied more of how, the limited amount you can find out about the algorithms in Amazon is it plays a big role on who they promote and what they do. And so it's important. And so what I did a couple of things. And wow, you just keep asking. This was I just did 2 weeks ago a blog post on this as well, on 5 ways to get this. One of the things that I did was I wanted to make sure that I picked the low fruit, I guess you could say. In other words, I had people that would send me emails and say, I really loved your book, and I would just say thank you. And I had all of these people that had done that, and I never asked them to do anything. I went back to that list of people and just said, hey, it would be really helpful with Amazon. I really appreciate your feedback on the book. It'd be really helpful with Amazon if you'd leave a review. And I was amazed at when you ask people how many did. I think, for instance, anybody that's listening right now to your podcast, I would encourage, and is getting something out of it, has been enjoying this, I would encourage them to go rate and review your podcast. It makes a difference on how iTunes promotes you. Absolutely. It's the same way with books. So if you've got a book, make sure you don't skip over the fact that you ask people to help, because especially those people that are coming to you and saying, hey, I love what you've done, they want to help you. You sometimes have to direct them, but just make sure you ask people those things and that you get those things. Another way that I did it, which is that I held some contests. I did. There's a website. It's a free website, rafflecopter.com.
Yeah,
and they administer those things. And what I would do is I went out there and I said, hey, anybody that would that's read the book and that would give an honest review. I'm not trying to get fluffy. We'll give an honest review. Send a copy of it. Rafflecopter has the capability to do this. Copy and let me know that you've done this, and enter on Rafflecopter, and I'm going to give away a Kindle Fire. The Kindle Fire cost me, I think, $120, but I got like I don't know, 15, 20 reviews, and I wanted to, and I was specific that I wanted it to be reviews that were done by people that had actually purchased the book. And so, because I didn't want it to be a fake deal. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be real reviews, and it was. So, there's all these kind of ways, but the reviews are critically important because it does give you that social proof that your book, A, is quality, and B, is something that has the ability to help people or give them that escape, I guess, if it's nonfiction, that they're looking for.
Okay, I see. Well, maybe the last question. I'm just trying to ask you the biggest marketing blocks and the elements connected to the book. So I think we didn't cover the pricing points. How do you deal with pricing?
I'm doing more research on that now on it than I have. When I did the launch, I kind of went to the high end on mine, and part of it is because I just believed in it. Maybe that's naive, and what I'm in the process, it's funny you asked this again. Literally this week, what I've been doing is I've been studying the other books that are in my subcategories and trying to identify what is their pricing, and so I can kind of get a better comparison there. I think a great way to do that is just go find the category that you want to make an impact in, or that your book fits in, and just look around and see what's the pricing of the top 10 books, in that category. What's the pricing that obviously the pricing is helping their sales in some way, shape, or form. And I've kind of come to the conclusion too that obviously I want to get my message out, and especially for people that are going to write multiple books, because the more people that buy your first book or that get access to you or find you, the more that you're going to have a platform built for your upcoming books. And so what I'm looking at now is reducing my prices, not completely all the way down, but reducing them in a way that gives me the ability to maximize growing my audience, because it is my first book, and I want to build that audience that when I bring another quality product out, that that they've had a quality experience with my first book, and that they have a feel for who I am, and that they're excited to be a part of that launch on that next book.
I see. Okay, and what will be the last advice to someone who is either writing now a book or has written his first book and decided to self-publish? What he should do first?
The first thing, and it doesn't even have to be with me because there's some great guys out there that are doing this, but the best money I've ever spent was on coaching. I think even you and I talked about that, about the fact, like when you started the podcast, that you went and found somebody that had done it, and it was the best. It helped you speed up the process. Mm-hmm. I spent 6 months trying to figure this out on my own, and literally within 6 weeks, I had tripled what I knew about what I had done because of the association with other people that were already doing it, and with a coach that I could literally ask when I got stopped on something. I could ask the question on how to get over it, and that's what I did. I just went out. I found my coach, Kamanzi Constable, that helped me. He'd sold 82,000 books in a couple year period, the value that I found from him was way in excess of what I paid him. And so I would just encourage people, if you've got a book written and you're frustrated, go find somebody that's done it and hire them. There's tons of good guys out there that are doing that. I do it, but there's tons of other guys out there also. The other thing, if you're writing your book, this really helped me, or if you're written your book and you just want to continue writing, is just be disciplined. Write every day. Everything we do in life gets better the more we do it. Mm-hmm. And so what I found with my writing is sometimes I even go back and read parts of my original book that I wrote 9 months ago, and I cringe because I'm like, I wouldn't have formulated that sentence that way, or I'd have made this point differently. And that's just come with me maturing from a standpoint that as we do things, we get better at them. So I would just encourage those people out there, just make it a priority to, on a daily basis, shut everything off and just write, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your writing will improve and get even better.
Okay. Well, very good advice. So, just keep on writing and find someone who will help you out.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It was like a zipped, packed interview with many tools, many useful things. I will make sure that I've got everything in the show notes so people have the references of the links where to go and which tool was for what. So, everyone can just go to my website and look through the show notes and make sure that they've got everything covered. Well, thank you very much for spending this almost an hour with me and my listeners. It was really, really a big pleasure talking to you. Very useful information. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ani.
Well, that was it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And now I think it's time to go and write those wonderful books that you have on your mind. Take care and meet you again in the next episode.